Have you ever noticed that we complain so much, we don't even realize we're doing it? It's not always about big things. Just casual, unconscious comments like, "Ooh, another meeting. This weather is awful. This computer is driving me crazy." These words might seem harmless, but they slowly drain your energy, shape your attitude, and even affect the way you see the world. That's why I decided to try a challenge that sounds simple, but turned out to be surprisingly hard. Right pointing back hand index speak only positively for 3 days. No complaining. No criticizing or blaming. No negative words at all, not even as a joke. At first, I thought it would be easy. But just a few hours in, I was shocked to realize how addicted I'd become to negativity. And after 3 days, something shifted. Not in the world around me. Not in the people I talked to. But deep inside me. Bullseye, so what actually happened in those 3 days? And how could such a small challenge lead to such a powerful inner transformation? Let's explore that in this video. Speech balloon. And if you've ever caught yourself unconsciously speaking negatively every day, try this challenge with me, just 3 days. Write down pointing back hand index. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Everyday Momentum, and comment. I'm in 3 days of positivity. If you're ready to take the first step toward a more intentional, uplifting life. Part 1, Day 1, Unveiling the Unconscious Words. I started the challenge on a Monday morning, that kind of morning when most people are still carrying a bit of weekend laziness, a hint of reluctance. I mentally prepared myself, took a sip of coffee, and told myself, today, I won't say a single negative thing. It sounded simple. I used to think, just be careful with your words, think before you speak, how hard can it be? But reality hit differently. Within the first 2 hours, I had already blurted out over a dozen negative remarks, without even realizing it in the moment. When the printer jammed. This thing always breaks. When I checked my calendar. Seriously, not a single peaceful day this week. Reading the news. Ooh, more bad news. Of course. I wasn't trying to be negative. I wasn't intentionally spreading bad vibes. I was just reacting. And I realized that reaction had become deeply embedded in my everyday life. It seeped into casual conversations. It hid in harmless jokes. It showed up in how I bonded with coworkers and made small talk. I remembered a friend once joking, if Vietnamese people didn't have anything to complain about, we wouldn't know what to say. I used to laugh at that. But that morning, as I struggled to stay positive, I didn't find it funny anymore. Because the moment I tried to remove negativity from my speech, I suddenly felt awkward. I didn't know how to respond when a coworker vented about work. I didn't know how to react to negative headlines. I didn't know what to say when someone teased me about waking up late, and I normally would have made fun of myself just to play along. So instead, I chose silence. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I was afraid that saying anything might break the challenge. And in that silence, I saw something clearer than ever before. Right pointing back hand index. I had been using negative language as an emotional release valve. And even worse, I'd been using it as a way to feel connected and gain sympathy. I started paying closer attention to the words forming in my mind. And I saw, my brain operated like a flaw detector. It constantly looked for things to complain about. A slow driver. A sudden rainstorm. A frustrating headline. A tiny imperfection in someone's behavior. I couldn't remember when I had adopted the mindset that negative reactions are natural. You have to vent or you'll explode. Everyone does it. But now, when I had to stop and choose differently, I saw it. Complaining is so easy, it requires no thought. But choosing a positive response? That demands awareness, control, and patience. Day 1 ended with a feeling of deep confusion. Not because I had failed so many times, but because I realized something even deeper. White right pointing backhand index. This challenge isn't just about controlling what I say. It's about waking up. About asking myself if I'm really living consciously or just reacting on autopilot. On that first day, I thought I was trying to control myself. But in truth, I was starting to understand myself. Part 2, Day 2, A battle between silence and awareness. Day 2 began with a noticeable shift in caution. I no longer dared to speak without carefully filtering every word in my head. Is this negative? Am I saying this unconsciously? Is it even necessary? I didn't just stop complaining. I started not speaking at all. And in that silence, I finally felt the real battle wasn't happening in my mouth, but in my mind. I began hearing that small voice in my head, the one I used to ignore. It's way too hot. My boss is making me work overtime again. That driver is so careless. All those thoughts were still there. They didn't disappear just because I didn't say them out loud. And then I understood. White right pointing backhand index. This challenge wasn't just about stopping negative speech. It was about becoming aware of the stream of thoughts I usually let run wild. I started feeling uncomfortable. Not because the world got worse, but because I could no longer vent the way I used to. No blurting out. No casually offloading stress onto someone else. No words to mask my inattention. And I realized something kind of shocking. I had become dependent on negativity as a way to manage my emotions. When you're not allowed to speak negatively, you're forced to face yourself. No blaming. No deflecting. No distracting with quick remarks. I remember one small but powerful moment. I was having lunch with co-workers. Someone shared a story about a difficult client. Then another chimed in with their own "this week was a messed up date." The vibe turned into a group venting session. I just sat there, offering a polite smile. I couldn't join in. I couldn't object. I just stayed quiet. And in that moment, I felt myself separating from the crowd. No longer blending in by mutual complaints. No longer saying things just to fit in. No longer laughing out of obligation to bond over shared frustrations. I felt alone. But I also felt more awake than I'd ever been. That night, as I reflected on my day, I didn't feel like I had succeeded or failed the challenge. I just felt that I had thought more about my words, and that made me slow down and live more intentionally. Day 2 was the day I didn't say much. But I heard more than ever. The voice inside me and the noise of my old habits. Part 3, Day 3, when positive energy started to spread. I entered Day 3 with a strange new feeling. Lightness. No more tension. No more forcing myself to control my words. I no longer felt restricted by silence. I started to feel free because I was no longer pulled into the usual patterns of negativity. I didn't have to constantly remind myself, "Careful, don't say the wrong thing." Because my mindset itself had started to shift. I began actively looking for something positive to say. I wasn't just avoiding negativity anymore, I was choosing to view things differently. Hot weather? Perfect day for a walk. Last-minute task from my boss? Another chance to prove what I can do. Someone complaining? I listened and gently offered a calmer perspective. And then something unexpected happened. When I changed the way I responded, the world around me started to change too. My co-workers began looking at me differently. Some even called me the calm in the chaos. A few quietly said, "It actually feels peaceful talking to you." I wasn't trying to spread positivity. I just stopped adding fuel to the fire of negativity. And apparently, that alone was enough to shift the entire atmosphere. But what struck me the most was this. I started to realize I had the power to choose how I felt. Before, I believed, if someone's negative, I have to match that energy. Life is tough, complaining is just natural. But on Day 3, I discovered a quiet, powerful truth. White right pointing back hand index. I don't have to react the way I always did. I can choose differently and still be true to myself. That night, as I sat alone and reflected, I felt deeply grateful. Grateful that these past 3 days had helped me observe myself. My words. My thoughts. And how I showed up in the world. Grateful that I finally understood something precious. Speaking positively isn't just about making others feel good. First and foremost, it's about making yourself feel lighter, clearer, and more present. I didn't become naively optimistic. But I did become a version of myself that was more intentional with every word I chose to speak. Part 4. What I learned after 3 days. A new habit. A new version of me. Before this challenge, I thought I was a fairly positive person. I didn't get angry easily. I didn't speak harshly. I didn't curse. But after spending 3 full days consciously paying attention to every single word I said, I realized something surprising. White right pointing back hand index. I wasn't loudly negative. But I was quietly negative, consistently, and unconsciously. Turns out, those little jokes are just for fun. The sighs. The half-serious criticisms. They weren't harmless like I used to believe. They were tiny drops, slowly filling up my spirit. They were quiet whispers, subtly shaping the way I saw my life every single day. Herb. After 3 days of speaking only positive words, I felt a noticeable lightness in my mind. I stopped reacting on autopilot. I started choosing what I wanted to say, and even what I wanted to think. I spoke less, but deeper. I no longer felt the need to reply right away. I didn't try to blend in through small talk or sarcasm. I simply showed up, mindfully, and with intention in what I gave to the world. And then, something hit me in the most unexpected way. Seedling our words, our habits too. And when you change the way you speak, you're quietly rewriting the code of who you are becoming. 3 days is too short to turn anyone into a perfectly positive person. But 3 days is enough to wake you up. To make you see your own unconscious patterns more clearly. It's enough to pause and ask, how have I been living, communicating, and impacting others? I no longer saw this as a challenge to restrict myself. I started seeing it as a new doorway. A deeper, calmer, and more conscious way to live. And the most beautiful part? White right pointing back hand index. I don't want to go back to how I used to speak. I don't want to be someone who constantly complains. I don't want to be someone who says things just for the sake of it, only to leave behind heavy energy for myself or others. I want to speak like someone who chooses their words. Because words are seeds we scatter hundreds of times each day. And after these 3 days, I've learned a simple but powerful truth. Globe showing Americas: the world doesn't need you to always be cheerful. But the world, and you, will always be better. If you start with just one positive word at a time. Every word you speak is a brick in the life you're building. I didn't become a forever happy person after just 3 days. I still get tired. I still get discouraged. But something shifted deep inside. I started listening to the words I say. Before, I used to say things without thinking. Ooh, this sucks. When things only slightly went off plan. This is terrible. Just because a small detail didn't go right. I can't do this. Before I'd even really tried. But speaking only positively for 3 days taught me something profound. White right pointing back hand index. Words don't just reflect your thoughts, they shape them. When I chose softer, more encouraging words, my mind felt lighter. When I spoke to lift myself up instead of tearing myself down, I began to trust myself more. And when I spoke kindly about others, my relationships naturally became more peaceful. Electric light bulb. I realized. Every sentence I speak is a small brick. Quietly shaping the way I live. The outside world didn't change. But I changed the way I responded to it. Bullseye. So if you've ever felt worn out by the voice in your head, try it, just 3 days of intentional, positive language. No complaining. No criticizing. No tearing down. Just words you want to plant. Words you want to live alongside. If you're ready to try this 3-day challenge with me, speech balloon comment below, I choose to speak positively. And don't forget, thumbs up sign like this video if it resonates with you. Bell subscribe to Everyday Momentum for more weekly inspiration and tools to grow with intention. Megaphone share this with someone who could use a little light. Because sometimes, a single kind sentence is enough to save someone's spirit.